Howdy friends, how y'all doing? Sapper here, aka Sean. We're starting turn 10. Well, not starting turn 10. We're about ready to commence the first strike phase of turn 10. And I just kind of wanted to show you what I got lined up. I think North Korea is really, by looking at it, North Korea is, they're starting to hurt pretty bad. A lot of their units are depleted. They're not getting any more reinforcements. So things are looking pretty grim. But so you can see here, we've got one North Korean strike mission going to go on. Chances of it getting shot down are probably pretty good, but the way I look at it is these pilots were given a choice. Either you fly this mission and attempt to bring glory to Kim Jong-un, or you don't fly this mission and we round up your family and imprison them for the rest of your life, throw them in a gulag somewhere. So they decided to fly this mission. Alright, so then we have an F-16. Actually, no, I'm sorry, these are Wild Weasel missions. These are going to target the detection track, the radar sites for North Korea. We've got a B-2 bomber mission. We've got a B-1 bomber mission right here. We've got another B-2 bomber. And we've got several Apache strike missions going on. So if you look at the big map here, this right here are chemical sites. See the little symbol right there, the chemical sites. They have been targeted by special forces teams hiding up in the hills with laser designators. So they have successfully targeted those sites. If I can destroy those, that's five VPs apiece for destroying those. And I've already destroyed a couple of sites. Here's one here. That was a nuclear site. You see the symbol right there. I think I destroyed. Oh, that was an airfield that I destroyed not too long ago. So going for these chemical weapons nuclear sites is a pretty good strategy for getting victory points. So one of those sites is being targeted by, actually both of those are being targeted by B-2 bombers because they're stealth. So they'll have a better chance of success being, well, better chance of not being detected because they're stealth. So that's why I decided to use the stealth bombers. Let's see. The white cube is a B-1 bomber strike on that supply depot that I've tried to get rid of before. Probably won't get rid of it again, but because they're hardened targets. Supply depots are hardened targets. That red cube, that's the lone North Korean bomber. It's targeting, let's see, what are we targeting, or what are we trying to hit? They've been targeted by special forces teams, and we are trying to get that mechanized or armored infantry division. Alright, the orange cube is an Apache helicopter strike. That green cube is an Apache helicopter strike. And I've got one more somewhere. The yellow cube right here. That yellow cube is an Apache helicopter strike on some mechanized infantry, armored infantry. These are, dang it. Alright, so these helicopter strikes are in marsh, which I'm playing in the wintertime. So marsh is considered flat. Helicopters are really good getting stuff in flat terrain. So that's why I decided, I was like, you know what, I could use F-15s, but why not use some of these helicopters? Helicopters have a really good chance of success if they don't get shot down by AAA in flat terrain. So I'm targeting, instead of using my F-15s right now, I'll use the F-15s during the second strike phase and mop up some of the stuff that I managed to hit or weaken during the combat segment that will follow the strike phase. So there you have it, folks. That's kind of the way things are looking right now. I'll get back with y'all later. Alright, howdy folks. It's Sapper, aka Sean. I'm probably going to end up wrapping up Next War Korea here because it's getting to the point right now where the North Koreans, the DPRK is getting beat really bad. I do not see how they are going to be able to pull out of this in any way. I haven't looked at the victory point margins yet to see what kind of victory it'll be for the Allies, but it's going to be at a minimum marginal. They're in the lead by the end of this turn. They'll be ahead by over 100 victory points. At that point in time, once you get 90 plus victory points differential, then you can start rolling for automatic victory. Now, the first time you roll for automatic victory, you can only roll, or you can only achieve an automatic victory on a roll of a 0. So but every subsequent turn that you have that 90-point differential, you add more to the die roll. So eventually there's going to be a victory before the 16th turn. Right now we are in game turn 10, so either way the game was going to be over soon, but I think I'm probably going to end up calling it right now. We'll see what happens at the end of this phase, but I wanted to just highlight one combat. This is probably going to be one of the last combats that the North Koreans take. I mean, the odds are just not in their favor. Most of their units are depleted or reduced. They have their air forces pretty much gone. All their special forces teams are gone. Their air defense tracks are bottomed out. They have 0 detection. All their aircraft detection, radar detection has been destroyed. Now, yeah, they can rebuild a certain amount at the end of every turn, which is only 2. They can rebuild 2 things. But they're at this point in time, they're going to constantly be playing catch up and behind the power curve. So I'll go ahead and show you basically how I perform a combat. I remove the units from the spot that they're in just because, and I mark where they're located. You can kind of see that right there where the cubes are. So the die with the target on it is the unit that's being attacked, and then the colored cubes represent, they're just placeholders for the units that are actually attacking. And I messed this up, so let me straighten this out real quick. So I moved the units off the map just so it makes it a little bit easier for me, and that way I can write on the plexiglass. I can figure out odds and all that. For each combat, you have to designate a lead unit. So I pull the lead units to the center, and that makes a difference because when you take losses, your first loss has to be from your lead unit. So if there's losses for either side, these units here will take the losses first, and then if there's excess losses, you can distribute those any way you want among the remainder of the units that are on the board. So I've designated 3rd Brigade, 25th Infantry Division is the lead unit here, and then the 28th Division, 4th Corps Infantry is the lead unit here. And you can kind of see here you've got this little number here. That's your efficiency. That number 7 is your efficiency. And you can generate column shifts by using the efficiency. So the higher the number, the better. U.S. units typically have efficiency ratings of 7. North Korean units typically have efficiency ratings of 5 or 6. So the difference, so you'll subtract the lowest from the highest, and that'll get you your difference in column shifts. So the U.S. has a 7. The North Koreans have a 5, so there'll be 2 column shifts to the left. So that's basically in favor of the U.S. units. So if you look, right here, I have column shifts written down. Right, CS is for column shifts. So I have 2 left due to efficiency. The North Koreans decided to throw an artillery brigade support in there, so that gives them a column shift to the right. So they'll end up, overall, there'll be 1 column shift to the left. And then basically what you're going to do is you're going to add up For the defender, you add up their defenses, so that's the middle number. So you have 3, 4, and then 2 for a total of 9. But this strike marker basically means you subtract 1 from attack, defense, movement, and efficiency rating of this unit. So that's why the 2nd Brigade 25th Infantry or 25th ID is not the lead unit here, because their efficiency is technically a 6 because of the strike marker. So if you look, their total odds ended up being an 8. If I add up all the North Korean units, it ended up being a 30. And then you can add headquarters support, as long as there are any headquarters that still have support remaining on them. You can use each headquarters unit up to 2 times per turn to support attack or defense. So you add that in there. So U.S. headquarters, let me see if I can grab one. All right, so here's a typical U.S. headquarters. So this superscript 5 is the range that you can support a unit, and it's also how many combat factors you add. So I had two U.S. headquarters that were in range, so that's where we get the 18 from. And then, oh, actually, you know what? I can only use 1 headquarters on the defense, so that will be a 13. You can use 2 headquarters on the attack. So I looked at the Korean headquarters, the North Korean headquarters that were in the area, and there was only 1 that could actually support it. Now, U.S. are unique in that any U.S. headquarters, because of the brigade combat team structure of the United States Army, any U.S. headquarters that is within range can support any U.S. unit, which is awesome. It's really a good ability. As far as the Koreans go, only 3 headquarters could possibly support this attack. The 8th Corps, the 4th Corps, or the 3rd Corps. Of those 3, there was only 1 that had any kind of capability left to support. So, and their headquarters are a little bit weaker. They have a 4 range, and they provide 4 combat factors. So that's where we get the 34 from. Then we do our final odds calculation. So it'll end up being a 1.5 to 1. We have 1 column shift to the left, and then you go down you look at the chart and you find all your different DRMs. So we have a -1 for a multi-hex combat, because we're attacking with 3 from 3 different hexes. We do a -1 because there was a remainder in the odds calculation. There is a +1 for multi-core combat on the side of the DPRK, and then I decided to support the U.S. with 2 F-22 Raptors. They add, if they are not detected, intercepted by enemy interceptors, and or shot down by SAMs or AAA fire, then they will add the middle number, which is a 3, as a DRM. Because the detection track of the North Koreans has been basically blown to hell, their Air Force has been blown to hell, and these guys are stealth fighters, they make it through. So they're going to give you a +6 die roll modifier. So, and that's the max that you can have. So if you add all these up, it basically ends up being a +5 DRM. And then we roll on the CRT. Let me see if I can get the CRT in here. So we roll on the CRT. So here, I think this combat is in Flat Woods. So we go to Flat Woods. The odds were 1.5 to 1. So we go down that column. We have, almost knocked my camera over. So we have a +5 DRM. So basically what I'll do is I'll roll the die and see what we get. Looks like we have a 5 +5 for the DRM. So we look at the 10 slot on the column. So the first number is a 1, which that's what the losses the attacker takes. And the second number behind, or the number to the right of the slash, is the number that the number of step losses that the defender takes. So that's pretty much in a nutshell how a combat works. So each side takes 1 step loss. They have to come from the lead unit first. So now there we go. We have a reduction. So if you notice that 325 did not lose any efficiency, but the North Korean unit did lose an efficiency rating. So that's kind of how a combat works. And then, of course, you know, with any given unit, you have a full side, you have the reduced side, and then the strike markers also. It's not really like a reduction. If you have enough strike markers on a unit, then you can reduce it. But a strike one, which you usually get those from strike missions from aircraft, helicopters, or headquarters. A strike one reduces the unit's attack, defense, movement, and efficiency by 1. If you have a strike 2 marker, then it reduces everything by 2. If you get another strike marker, after you're at a strike 2, if you get another strike marker, then you'd reduce the unit and remove the strike marker. So that's kind of how strike markers work. They're better at, it takes a lot to reduce something through strikes, but it works better when you're trying to just reduce a unit's efficiency. So that's pretty much it as far as combat. I probably already said that, but and then here's just kind of a quick overview of the map. You can see over here on the east coast of Korea, basically the North Koreans are collapsing. So that's kind of why I think I'm going to call it. I'll finish out the turn, and then I'll just kind of wrap things up for y'all. All right, welcome back. I just wrapped up the 10th game turn. This particular scenario goes to 16. Added up all the victory points accumulated and everything, and I pretty much think I'm going to call it, because right now it stands the Allies have 234 and the North Koreans have 140. According to scenario rules, an overwhelming victory is a victory where the differential is 70 points or more. So right now we're sitting at 90. There's no way that the North Koreans can make that up. It's just not possible. Not with the amount of units they have left. Not with the amount of air they have left, which is pretty much no air. So I think I'm going to call it. And that way I can get this boxed up, or I can get it inventoried and then boxed up and then sent back to Jeff, because I'm sure he is nervous. You know, it's not an easy game to find, and if you can find it, it's not cheap. So let me move over here to the final game information display. So that's kind of what that looks like. It's pretty cluttered and pretty busy. You can see right here that these are all the Special Forces units that have been eliminated. On the Chinese North Korean side, there's nobody, they've all been eliminated. The US, Commonwealth, and Republic of Korea still had quite a few, and you got these that were eliminated down here. The US still had a cruise missile left. The Chinese used all their cruise missiles in the previous turn. They only had 2 left, and then the North Koreans used all their Scuds, and they only had 2 left. It was kind of a desperation move for them to use that. I don't think they were very successful with them. Here's the final look at what air units are left. You can see that the North Koreans don't have a lot, and what they do have is pretty much, most of them have taken losses. The Chinese are the same way. If you look right here, you can see that the US, Commonwealth, Japan have quite a few. There's 2 carriers worth of naval units there. Those are in the Sea of Japan, and you have 2 carriers worth of air right there. Those are in the Yellow Sea. So we have plenty of air assets, and having air supremacy, plus the North Koreans' air defense tracks were pretty much reduced to nothing. We could do anything we want with aircraft without having to worry about anything getting shot down. Same goes for helicopters. Just a little chicken scratch over there. That was the last victory point run up. I kind of like to keep a running total here as well as on the game information display. That way it's little bit easier for me to track. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. I really enjoy playing this game. It's really fun. I would like to think that it's a pretty good simulation, or it's as good a simulation as we could put together in a board game format. I'd like to think that if there was a ground war that did take place, it would probably play out similar. Um, I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that we would have air superiority. And towards the end of the game, the aircraft just dominated. Me being able to use what I want, when I want, where I want was crucial. I mean, those air units that were able to support ground combats were given the North Koreans, +6 die roll modifier, which in this game plus die roll modifiers are a bad thing. So the lower you roll on the combat resolution table, the better. The higher you roll, the worse. And we were getting DRMs of +6 almost every time during the last couple turns. So the North Koreans, there was no way that they were going to come back. The scenario that I played was the extended build-up scenario, which basically says that both sides have been posturing for a long period of time. The U.S. has slowly been moving units in. The North Koreans have been slowly moving units in. So basically, this scenario that I was playing was a simulation of both sides having everything or almost everything in place. I mean, the North Koreans pretty much had everything in place because they only received reinforcements probably the first 3 or 4 turns. And the U.S. slowly just receives reinforcements all the way up until almost the end of the game. I mean, in fact, I just received the remainder of the, let me see it, the 1st Infantry Division. So there's a brigade here that arrived. There's a brigade here that arrived. The headquarters arrived, and an infantry division arrived, or infantry brigade arrived. The helicopters, they had arrived like the turn before. So the U.S. received a fresh division. I mean, at the end of game turn 10. So, and U.S. divisions are pretty potent. They have very high efficiency ratings, and they're really good. Of course, when you take a loss with one, it really hurts, because then the victory point table kind of reflects that. Like when you lose a North Korean brigade, it's 1 point, but when you lose a U.S. brigade combat team, it's 2 points. So the U.S., the U.S. we don't like to tolerate losses in today's day and age. We don't have a very good stomach for that kind of stuff. So every loss is deemed as something extremely bad. If you look over here on the west, or excuse me, the east coast, you can see that the North Korean side is pretty much collapsed. Here's the DMZ right here. So U.S. forces have really managed to push inland. I think if I had continued playing, I was about ready to land the Marines that had the terrible experience over on the west coast in the town of Haiju, the ones that got basically kicked off the peninsula. They decided to float around the southern part of the peninsula and come back, and so we had the remaining U.S. Marines here, we had the Australian Marines, and I think we were going to attempt a landing up here along with the support of these Australian units here. And of course we have this Marine Light Armored Reconnaissance Battalion. They were all going to head up there. That was my plan, was to land them there. I mean, there was only that one North Korean unit right there, and he wasn't going to do anything. So, I mean, you can look here, pretty much the whole eastern side from the U.S. perspective, western side from the North Korean perspective was collapsing, and we were just slowly going to start pushing this way, and it was just going to be ugly. This part of the map, it pretty much right here, here's the DMZ. And you can see the North Koreans pushed over into the DMZ here. the U.S. pushed over into the DMZ here. The thing that made this part of the map really static is you have a river right here. And these rivers, they really make combat difficult. They basically reduce your combat value by half. So it's really hard to attack across the river, even if there's a bridge there. So that's pretty much why everything stayed like it was over on this side. There wasn't a lot of territory gained by either side. And usually when a hex was gained, the next turn or the next combat, it was usually taken back because the units that had pushed in were weak, so they got ganged up on by, you know, units from multiple hexes. So those rivers really bog things down. I mean, the mountains over here bog things down, but you know, fighting mostly stays restricted to roads, and you know, if you use your air support and all that, it definitely helps out a lot. Towards the end of the game, when I knew that air superiority wasn't going to be an issue, I started targeting facilities like airfields, nuclear facility right there. I think I destroyed this chemical weapons or chemical facility here. I had all of these in my sights, had them targeted with aircraft. I was only able to destroy one, but you get 5 victory points for every nuclear or chemical weapons facility you destroy. So it's one of the things that I started to do as the allies is starting to go for those things, especially once you have air superiority. It's too easy. There's enough helicopters and other things to support combats, but great game. I really wish they would do a reprint for it. I mean, yeah, it's on the P500. I P500'd it a while ago, but I don't think it's going to make the cut again because there's only, you need 500. 500 is the magic number, and it's only sitting at like 250. It's just it's not moving, so I think they're going to end up, probably, my opinion, they're going to end up pulling it off the list just because it's not seeing enough movement. This is of the 3 games that are out right now in the Next War series, this is the biggest one. It's the first one, but it's also the biggest one. You know, you can see it takes up 2 maps. Of course, in this specific scenario, I was thinking about actually pulling this map off because there's really, you know, there's a handful of units here, but you know, most of the action takes place up at the DMZ. I'm sure there's other scenarios in the game that will utilize this southern map a little bit more. And I know that there's single map scenarios too. So, but great game. Glad I got the chance to play it. Definitely the more complex of the 3 for the simple reason that there's just so many units. Taiwan is complex because there's a lot more naval stuff going on. I think the easiest one to get into is Pakistan, just because of the unit count. It's strictly a 1 map game. There's only 1 map in the box. But great series, love it. I love the hypothetical warfare, you know, future warfare aspect of it. So it's definitely a great series. I'm really looking forward to Next War Poland, and I hope they come out with even more after that. I'll buy every single one of them. Anybody that's watching this, if you got an extra copy of Next War Korea laying around that you don't want, it's just like, hey, you know, I don't want this. Hey, look me up, man. I'll take it off your hands for you. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I definitely enjoyed it, and look forward to seeing more stuff from me. Not necessarily always going to be a war game, but I have fun doing this. Just one of those new things. Oh, before I say goodnight, here's the final count of lost units. We got all these Marines, basically from here, basically this row down, these guys were all the ones that were lost in the failed amphibious landing. This group up here were the ones that were in Busan when it got nuked. We only actually lost 2 brigade combat teams, both of them from the 101st. So we lost 1st Brigade and 3rd Brigade. Most of the other stuff was all Republic of Korea units, and lost some air units. Some of these air units were consolidations, which means you can take 2 reduced units as long as they're the same kind, and you can combine them into 1. Those don't count towards victory points, but so that's what we lost as far as air units go. Some of those were in Busan. The A-10 was in Busan. The B-52, which sucks because I really wanted to use the B-52. But this game, and I think I lost a B-1 bomber too. It's the same thing. In comparison, you can see that the North Koreans really took a beating. Here's all their air units. Of course, so many divisions lost. So had this been real world, I think the North Koreans probably would have given up sooner, for the simple fact that if they would keep fighting, they would have nothing. Even if they decided, hey, we give up, hey, just kidding, just playing, and we agreed to whatever, they'd have nothing left to defend their country with from within. They'd probably have a lot of civil war and all that kind of stuff. They wouldn't be able to stop that from happening. So I think they would have given up long before I decided to end it. But anyway, I've rambled long enough. You guys be amazing, and we'll catch you later.